So always the basement represented by the projects is going to help the continual sustenance of a organization on a whole. Likewise, if the top level decisions are sporadic or or turbulent, then it can also have a very great impact on the project level scope also. So there are very high dependencies between these. Likewise, the major area is the change. That is, the project management can expect and implement the change in the processes so that all the change management are uh, uh, monitored and controlled. Whereas in program management, what he have to expect is he has to expect the change that is being driven from internal level, that is from the project level, also the external level. Whereas in the portfolio level, they always see a broader picture. They always see how the entire industry is going on, how the market is going on. So they have to take the decisions and direct the change accordingly in that way. Whereas in terms of planning, the project managers, they plan elaborately in with very high detailing of each and every activity that has to get executed in that project so that the objective is completed. Whereas in the program managers, they also develop a very detailed plan on a macro level so that those projects are getting executed. So their high level planning will be to guide these detailed project planning in fruition so that they can get executed at the component level. Whereas in a portfolio level, the portfolio managers will create and maintain the necessary structure or the communication methodology or the basic backbone of the organization that can help and execute the planning, because basically the portfolio manager will establish the positive environment that are required to ensure that the projects and the programs get executed properly. Likewise, in terms of management, the project managers maintain and manage the project team directly, whereas the program managers manage the project managers and also the program staff. So they give kind of a vision and an overall leadership. Whereas the portfolio managers, they have control of the individual program managers and also indirectly the project managers. So the success of these project programs and portfolios will define upon the basic targets that we have defined for them. So for a project, it's defined by the product and the project quality, the timelines that you have stick to, and the cost compliance, and also the customer satisfaction as seen earlier. Whereas in a program, the success is going to be measured by which the program has satisfied the needs and the extra benefits that we have reaped out of a combined project methodology. Whereas in portfolios, how well all these programs adhere together to deliver a successful and cost effective output that is taken. So finally, the process of monitoring in a project, managers are going to monitor and control the work that is of producing the product, services or result. And whereas in programs, they monitor different progress of the program components so that again the targets are met. Whereas portfolio managers, they monitor on an overall level, wherein they see the overall performance and indicators towards the business objectives. So these are how the various targets of the different organization will get split into so that they can be directed upon. Now putting all together, as we see, we have seen project management, a program management and a portfolio management to make sure all work in tandem together and the communication is sent across. We have something called as a program management office, in short, a PMO. So this project management office, they work upon the projects and operation. Whereas a program management office, they can execute between different programs, but the main importance is of handling different projects that can communicate it and execute it. So this is the role of the project management office that establish the sync between the projects, program and the portfolio. So the role of the program management office is to centralize the management of the projects, and the roles can be split as either deliver the project support in terms of providing project management guidelines to specifically to the project managers, or give in a project management process or a methodology so that they give the backbone on a structured way of approaching it, certain guidelines, certain standards and process with which it has to follow. So that based on your organization, you devise your own guideline. So the PMO can also focus on this activity, that is setting up the process or methodology that needs to be followed. And it can also impart training across the different levels on the various skill sets that are required, various tools that are required to be implemented. So those can be targeted either internally or also externally. So this is the role of the program management. So you can see that how well all the information gets taken within. You take it in a project level, a program level, a portfolio level, put it together, and then, but for all these things, the end objective is the same. As a company, you are expected to deliver a quality product that can get sold and return revenues to it, and with proper customer satisfaction and proper services, you ensure that you expand your service base, customer base, and thereby more revenue. So that is the overall objective. That's not going to change. We're just splitting that into well-defined processes and then focusing on each and every one so that the end objective, the overall company objective is still met. So during this course of all the activities, we are going to have a say on a lot of important data and information. So that can be categorized as three ways. So one thing is the work performance data. The next categorization is work performance information, and finally work performance reports. So what do they mean? Is that for data what you're doing is the recording of all the raw observations and measurements that are identified during the activities performed to carry out the project work. So those are the raw information that you're collecting. So that is the data. In computer terminology, all the raw and unprocessed measurements or observations that are termed as the data. So all your project, throughout your project, you will have to undergo a lot of data collection. So once you have collected data, you process them into different context and then integrate them based on the different requirements or relationships, and you piece it together to give some meaningful inference. So that you call as a work performance information. Whereas finally, you put it together in a physical or an electronic way of representation for this project as a recorded and a readable format. Now that becomes a report. So typically what you do is in a project, day by day, you work on and collect data, and during review activities that we'll see in the next step, you'll process those data and try to deliver inference for immediate consumption by converting it to information. But once then, after taking informed decisions and informed actions, you collate all those uh, occurrences, learnings, and all those things to in a proper report so that they are signed off in a project or a program level or a portfolio level, agreed upon and closed off. So your report will serve as suitable authentication so that the project activity has been carried out successfully. So these are how the project management data and information is handled along the project lifecycle. So next, now we'll come on to the key terminologies that are governed by PMI and PMP for this project management. So this PMI is nothing but Project Management Institute. So that is a global organization that is a project management professional association that encompasses more than 2.9 million professionals as on date. So this PMI, it was first constituted in 1969 and it has a global presence in almost all the countries, and it's a not-for-profit organization because it does not derive revenues out of it, but it is constituted entirely so that the knowledge of handling a project, managing it, is structured, streamlined, and communicated to all the professionals around the world in a streamlined manner. And it offers a certification called as a Project Management Professional (PMP), so that it recognizes the demonstrated knowledge and skills of that particular person in leading and directing the project teams and it's an assurance that all the person that have the PMP certificate is an assured way of understanding that they will deliver the project results within the constraints of the schedule, budget, and resource. So this is an accreditation given to the personnel who have cleared this rigorous certification methodology. So that is the PMP. So in order to do this, it is a very rigorous examination, and this certificate is widely recognized, and there are greater than 10 lakh PMP certification holders available worldwide. So now we'll come in to the terminology that we used in the start of the slide, PMBOK. So that is called as the standard for project management and the guide to the project management body of knowledge. So this project management body of knowledge is the PMBOK, and this guide serves as the standard for this project management, because this basically put together all the structured knowledge that have been gathered, tested, and proven upon in various project streamlines. And this guide is the fundamental for all the PMP executives out there. And this is what we'll try to cover in this session, basically the various the fundamental objectives, so that you can have an informed way of understanding how this project management works, so that you can incorporate into your day-to-day activities, so that you can differentiate yourself among the rest of the team, and also you can strive to get this PMP certification done. So now let's go into the project management process. So this project management process has been defined as separate groups into the process by the PMB. Okay. The first thing is initiating the process. Next is the planning process, executing process, monitoring and control process. Final is the closing process. So these are the groups of the project management processes. So it can be put in a graphical manner, saying that we have an initiating phase and the closing phase. And in the execution phase, we have the executing process, a planning process that goes in an iterative way, and it is governed by a monitoring and controlling process. So once the project reaches a maturity based on the defined scope, then it moves on to the closing stage. We'll look into each and every one stage very closely. So first is the initiating process. So theoretically what it means is, the initiating process is a process performed to define a new project or a new phase of an existing project by obtaining authorization to start the project or phase. So we have to be very clear on the different terminologies that are taken within this definition. So this initiating process is performed on a new project or a new phase of an existing project by obtaining authorization to start the project or phase. So this is important. We have to obtain suitable authorizations that recognizes that yes, this project is required for the organization, and hence it is officially sanctioned and commissioned. So that is a very, very important requirement for you also to understand that what project you are working on and what state it is and how it has been authorized. And so going on, the defining the initial scope is by defining the scope and then getting the understanding of the initial financial resources that you have, and then understanding who are your internal and external stakeholders. The stakeholders we'll see in the next stage, but during initiation itself, we have to understand your internal and external stakeholders. So with this is what you will be initiating a project. So next, once initiated, you go on to the planning stage. In the planning process, what you do is you establish the overall scope of the effort required, the objectives are defined and redefined, and also develop the course of action that are required to attain those objectives. So this is the planning stage of your process. So this stage also involves development of the project management plan and the project documents that will be used to carry out the project. So next is, once you have planned it out, you have to execute it. In the execution process, what you're doing is we are completing the work defined in the project management plan step by step so that the project specifications are met. So that is your executing stage. So during this project execution stage, results may be required so that the plan gets updates and the base requirements, if required, can be updated. So as we saw earlier in this graph, it is a repetitive process that is controlled by this monitoring and controlling process. So what it does is the executing process have to be tracked, reviewed, and improved upon based on the progress and performance. So this monitoring and control process is uses to govern that. So finally, you close the project. So in this stage, what you do is you conclude upon all the activities that you have conducted in the different phases so that you formally complete the project and conclude all the contractual obligations that you have in and sign off the project and close it off. So this is the closing process. So this constitutes basically what are the different stages that are involved in the project. So now this guide shows in that for handling all these project stages, we need to have a strong understanding on several knowledge areas. So these knowledge areas means that complete set of concepts, items and activities that will make up a professional field, project management field or area of specialization for you. So these constitute the knowledge areas that we intend to acquire over this project management phase or intend to demonstrate during this phase. So there are a total of 47 project management processes that are identified in the guide. So that are grouped into 10 different knowledge areas. So the knowledge areas are starting from the top: integration, scope, time, cost, quality, human resource, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholders. So these are the 10 different knowledge areas. So reiterating, these knowledge areas are the complete set of concepts, items, and activities that make up a professional field, project management field, or an area of specialization. So we look into one by one very closely. So this knowledge area, first thing is as an integration. Now we'll put that knowledge area into different project management processes stages and assign the different skills that are required to or the processes that are involved in the knowledge areas. That is, in the initiating process, the project management process required is to develop a project charter. And in planning stage, you need to develop a project management plan. In execution, you are required to direct and manage a project work. Whereas in monitoring and control, you monitor and control the project work, and as required, you have to perform an integrated change control. And in the closing phase, you have to close the project or phase. So here the knowledge area applied is the integration of different activities that you carried out in each and every process and then deliver the different items that are listed here. So in the next stage, in terms of scope, it is applicable. This knowledge area is applicable for the planning and the monitoring and control phase. So in planning process, what you do is, so you plan the scope of the management, you collect the requirements, you define the scope and create a WBS structure. Whereas in monitoring and control phase, you validate the scope that is defined and then control the scope. So next, in the time, what you're doing is it's again applied to the planning and the monitoring and control process. So here you plan the schedule management, define the activities, you sequence those activities, estimate the resources that are required for that activity, and estimate the durations that are consumed or are required for those activities, and develop a detailed schedule to execute all these activities. So here you're incorporating the time functionality into it. Likewise, this is applicated in the control schedule also during the monitoring and control phase. So next, in the cost knowledge area, we have to plan the cost management, estimate cost, and determine budgets during the planning phase. In monitoring and control phase, you have to control the costs. So in quality, that is applicable for the planning, executing, and the monitor and control process, wherein you plan for the quality management, you execute quality assurance, and control quality. In the human resource area, you plan the human resource management, and in execution phase, you acquire the project team and then develop them and manage them. And in communication knowledge area, what you do is during planning segment, you plan on the communication management and then execute the management of the communications and then control the communication that have happened.